Hello and welcome back to coverage of Pro Tour Dragon's Maze here from San Diego, California. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Brian David Marshall, and we have a Hall of Famer here. That's Bob Maher. You may have seen him before. Dark Confidant, that's him. And he's playing against Kerry Edwards. This is round one of the second draft.
Kerry Edwards is a Pro Tour debutante, so you know, makes day two, and now he's got to do nothing less than defeat.
It doesn't
Hall
get any
of
easier.
Famer, you know, top 5 player in the game's history, Bob Maher.
Yeah, on camera no less. So double gate start for Bob, but no play on turn 3. He's just passed the turn back to Kerry, who's got 2 lands, looking for his third here, and really would like to get some pressure going. And he's not going to find pressure, but at least he has a play. He plays a Rakdos Cluestone here. So 4-drop for Bob with 2 gates. He's got a lot of options, we know, in his deck. Although in this case, not the most exciting one. No Gatekeeper for him. It's just going to be a Nimbus Swimmer for 2.
Build your own Griffin.
I mean, it looks like he just wanted to make a play here. Yeah. His hand is War Leader's Helix, which he can cast. There's also a Diluvian Primordial in his hand,
which he wants the turn to get there to turn 7.
Right.
Or maybe turn 6.
Wow.
You got there.
Jeez. Double the key rune into a Cluestone. So there's a ton of mana available for Kerry Edwards next turn. Let's see if he has anything big to do with it.
Well, you want to see what he has to do with all that mana?
Yeah.
He's got a Ruination Worm. He's got Flesh and Blood. Wow. He's got Toil and Trouble. And he's got a Syndicate Enforcer.
So he's got
dinosaur.
A handful of gas here.
Again, everybody's like, rainbows in your face, or is it more like happiness for everyone?
No idea. I'm gonna go with the happiness one.
No idea. Or did it eat a unicorn and is trying to get out?
Well, it better not have done that.
We hear Bob chatting it up with his opponent there. Maybe probing him for information. Maybe just being friendly.
That is too much mana.
And it's a Ruination Worm now. It's just a big vanilla creature, but it's huge.
That's great.
It's a tough card to deal with. War Leader's Helix, not going to do it. Although Bob does also have a Tristani's Judgment in hand, so he can get rid of the worm, but he's going to need another mana to do it.
Gets to buy himself a whole turn here with a Ceruli
Gatekeeper.
Gatekeeper.
Yep. So gain 7 life. A pretty significant jump in life, especially if you're up against an aggressive deck. But even here, like you just said, BDM, it's going to equal essentially a turn of damage from that Ruination Worm. Potentially give Bob a little bit of breathing room to draw that next land so that he can get rid of the worm with the Tristani's Judgment in his hand. I believe, does Bob have Follow the Gavel in his hand as well?
He does. Okay,
so he's going to be in an interesting spot. If he hits that 6 mana, he can just pass a turn back. And if Kerry goes for anything in the first main that's really scary, he can gavel it. If he doesn't, he's going to have to use his removal spell to take
a look at Ruination Worm.
4.
Just fat.
I think it's gotten better, though. I always thought it was slightly underrated, but now it seems like fairly solid. I mean, you can power these things out like we just saw, and all of a sudden, I mean, 7/6 is usually the biggest thing on board. It's hard to get much bigger than that. All right, so let's see what Kerry has lined up here.
Let me see.
Toil and Trouble. Toil me, trouble you.
So Toil me, trouble you. I think Bob has 3 cards in hand.
23.
Yep.
He's got 4 cards in hand, so that's going to put him down to 23.
But that's Toil and Trouble is going to be a great target for Bob with his Diluvian Primordial.
Exactly. As long as he can keep his life total reasonable, it's going to draw him a couple of cards and do some damage really nice. Yeah, that's a good point.
There's also a Flesh Blood in Kerry's hand, which could also be a fine target if that ends up not being a game ender.
Yeah. Pressure you, but I don't want to end up short on time. Okay.
Bob gently reminding his opponent that I know I'm very intimidating, but I need you to play faster.
Yeah.
Which does not make you less intimidating,
no,
Bob.
It does not. Now, I
There's
see
the
that
Tristani's Judgment. Mana.
it looks like he... Yeah, I guess it won't matter here.
12.
All right, so there's the key land drop that he needed, and I think he can just pass a turn
Yeah.
here. He could consider taking another hit as well, but I think he's just going to want to get rid of that worm and be content to stop taking 7 damage chunks. It's tempting though when you have Follow the Gavel to wait as well. All right, yeah, so he does in fact just take it. He wants to have Follow the Gavel available for any devastating huge play. I mean, when your opponent has that much mana, he's got what, 3, 6, 9, 10 mana available. All right, so Syndicate Enforcer, not a big deal. It's something that War Leader's Helix can deal with if Bob needs it to. He's still going to get to use his Tristani's Judgment on end step.
And
Extort.
All right, this is a rubber belt Maka. And Bob is deciding if he wants to pull the trigger on that.
on the Helix here.
I think he's going to counter it. Yeah, so he's going to follow the gavel.
Extort still goes off.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah, he just doesn't want to let his opponent get too far ahead on board here. He's not excited to counter that, but Rubber Belt Maka is a card that can, potentially attack where the Syndicate Enforcer can't get through the Gatekeeper, so he's not as worried about that. All right, I think he drew the...
Bob goes back up to 20 here.
Take 2.
Yeah.
11.
Eric Froelic's up a game.
Yep. He
His
over
match
Yuya.
against Yuya Watanabe,
Yep.
which could have impact on the player of the year race there. Both of them are in it.
Yep, and I heard that Andres Monsalv won a quick one versus Jelger Vigersman
So,
game 1 as well. Oh, excuse me, Jelger won his game.
Tristani's Judgment takes down the Ruination Worm.
There you go. As expected. Meanwhile, the Nimbus Swimmer is still just kind of pecking away,
Exile on Tin Street.
Is that like a headline or a movie? Or
It's a play on a Rolling Stones album or Liz Phair album, depending on what generation you're from.
Okay.
Neither of which are you.
Apparently. All right, so here's 5 mana.
Oh.
Sorry, roll back, and then I'll extort.
6 mana for a Morgue Burst. He's going to get the Rubber Belt Maka. Bob's going to confirm what it does. Morgue Burst is going to take down Nimbus Swimmer, and there's also going to be an extort payment here. So
12-19 off extort. And this goes to my hands.
Yep.
still no real pressure here from Kerry's side. Bob Maher has to feel like he's in a reasonable position. He still has War Leader's Helix in his hand in case things get really nasty. And, of course, he's got the Diluvian Primordial, which he's 1 mana away from actually casting.
Hell yeah.
All right, and Bob says, I'll trade it for your Maka. That's exactly what happens. All right, so let's draw a card here for Bob. It looks like he's drawn a Clue Stone here.
Which is the 7th mana he needs for the Primordial.
Unfortunately, it only leaves him with 4 mana available, so he'll have War Leader's Helix available this turn if he decides to play the Clue Stone, but he could also just run his 5-drop out. There it is. He's going to go with Leyline Phantom here. It effectively stops the assault, and it even adds a lot of pressure to the board, because remember, when you have War Leader's Helix in your hand, not only is it difficult for your opponent to figure out how much damage it's going to take to really kill you, but also it's 4 damage to the face if you need it. If you can find a hit with this Leyline Phantom plus 3 damage from anywhere else, then you can just kill. All right, let's see what Kerry can bring to the table here. He still has that flesh and blood.
He's thinking about that flesh and blood.
He's got the mana to fuse it if he wants. We see him turn the card sideways, so Bob's probably unsure which one it is, but he figures it might be coming. All right, here it goes.
Flesh and blood. Flesh, I'll target my Gruul Keystone, and then with blood, I'll target your Phantom.
So he exiles a creature, puts counters on a creature, which is he's animating a key rune.
Yeah, that's a Gruul key rune.
So that guy is 6/5.
And I guess he's going to exile the Gatekeepers. I think that's the only
So he gets to put
Oh,
three
no, the
counters.
rubber belt Maka. Sorry, I forgot that was in the yard. Yep. Should be exiled,
one.
though.
Oh, right. Okay.
All right. And that.
It's not that it doesn't fight.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, it just deals damage.
Oh, that's trouble.
Huh.
Okay.
Thought I did that for more of a reason than a trade.
Done.
Is it okay if I attack with both? Since I thought
Whoa.
this one was dead. You know?
Whoa, whoa, says
Already
Bob.
attacked.
Like I did already attack, but I thought
Okay.
that went to the graveyard.
So, what happened?
So I thought that this had traded because I thought this fought his guy. So I put it in the graveyard and then I went to attacks, but
And
it
we
didn't
took- I
actually
took
die.
3, and then
So
she came
this
back.
should have stayed alive. And then in that case, I would have changed my attacks.
So at this moment, the only difference is this: you mistakenly put this in the graveyard, right?
Right.
Anything else happened? Was there any blocking or anything going on?
No, there's no blocking.
No.
It attacked. I took 3, and then after the attack, they put it back in play.
Oh, what we're gonna do now is probably we're gonna back to the correct game state.
Okay.
So we're going to go all the way back.
Okay.
So this resolved.
Yes.
Continue from there.
Okay. And then
You
I'll
guys
attack
heard the
with both.
judge's
So
ruling
it's
there?
9. So
There was a little
10.
confusion
Okay.
whether the blood side of Flesh and Blood was a fight or just a this does damage, and it just does damage. So his key rune does not die. He kind of rushed into his attack step after he thought his key rune died, but immediately was like, wait, my key rune doesn't die, can I back up? And that's what the judge ruled. So he was able to attack there for a whole bunch of damage.
One
9.
turn, right?
Correct.
All right, so this turn looks like it's going to be a
Bluestone.
War Leader's Helix and a key rune.
Yep, and he has to
Helix,
just
this guy.
get rid of that thing right now.
Yep.
I'm going for 14.
So that puts Bob Maher back up to 14. He's facing down a potential 6-power attacker here. But he should be safe at 14. His opponent only has 2 cards in hand. It looks like he's got
And he can play
Hakanura.
and he can play Diluvian Primordial next turn and Flesh and Blood it.
Yes. He
Does
can.
he have something? Does he have and he can exile his Phantom.
2 in hand.
He can do that. The upside is that he's going to have a huge flying awesomeness.
Oh, you can only fuse from the hand.
Yes,
So he
so
doesn't get to do both.
He doesn't get
Yeah.
to do both, but he'll get to do one or the other. So, for example, if Kerry plays a creature here, all right, it looks like he's going to just cycle away one of his clue stones. But if he plays a creature, he's going to be able to kill it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for Bob, it's a little awkward because the key rune won't be able to be targeted in that scenario unless it's activated. And that key rune has 6 power, can actually just attack right through that Primordial. Now it'll trade off, so that's not
And
bad.
by the way, not done with fuse cards from Kerry Edwards. He now has a breaking and entering in his hand.
Wow, he went really deep.
We talked about the idea that you might see these 5-color decks.
And these fuse cards are a big part of that.
So breaking and entering is top 8 cards.
All right, we have Jelger Viersma has won his match 2-0 on the back tables versus Andres Monsalve. So just a quick update there from Sheldon. Thanks, Sheldon.
Bob is looking through the graveyard. And we can also see a Morgue Burst here.
Yeah,
Morgue Burst back to Phantom.
sure.
Deal 5 to you.
He could deal 5 to him, but he's going to have to block with his Primordial, potentially. Right? Eric Froelich on the back table wins 2-0 versus Yuya Watanabe, and Rob Castellan also won his match versus Mark Eilers. So
So there's an interesting meme going on Twitter. Castellan Facts. A
I
hashtag.
think it's
Nothing
Castellan.
happened
Castellan.
I'm being told it's Castellan.
Castellan, yes.
Castellan facts.
Castellan Facts. And it's a lot of the judges just
Fuse is
talking
only
about
cast
the
from your hands.
fuse is only cast from your
Sure,
hands.
Oh, okay. I cannot.
Bob wasn't sure whether you could fuse
Yeah.
or not, but he checked, and the
Say
judge
whether I
said
Morgue Burst, kill
RTFC.
something, and get a creature back. If I could Flesh and Blood, I would just intend to your face. But
It's a somewhat risky play if he were to dome him for 10, right? Because isn't Kerry at 12?
Well, he can't really.
I'm saying, had he even been
yeah,
able to?
Yeah.
I have to find a way to stop the key rune.
Have to find a way to stop the key rune. You hear him.
No, I guess he can just 10 him and then have the biggest possible blocker and attacker. So as long as he had any other creature, that line would work out fine. But that's not available to him. So he is going to have to cast that Primordial. He just has to figure out what the best possible use of its special ability is here. You can see he's
I haven't figured out what I'm doing yet, but I know it's coming out, so I thought I'd put it down there.
So triggered ability goes on the stack. He's got to target something here.
Here are your options.
Out there for you.
Here are your options, says Kerry Edwards.
Yeah, he can only cast stuff from his opponent's graveyard with Diluvian Primordial.
I'll just make the Diluvian 10-10. Nope. With this.
So he makes a 10-10 Diluvian Primordial
Flesh. Exile now.
using Flesh.
Yep.
He's going to use Flesh. He's going to exile his Leyline Phantom, and he's just going to put 5 counters on there. So this is his best effort to stabilize the board.
Hold on.
Now the
so
Diluvian.
I just thought of something. So this is exile target creature. So when we did this,
Oh,
I
that
was
should be.
supposed to have exiled that. So
Okay.
should we back it up and get a judge? Or?
Oh, no. It's very. When he casts Flesh and Blood, he forgot to actually exile the creature. It should be up here instead of in the graveyard. It's just a zone-ish. That's super. Great for pointing it out, but yeah.
All right, so you have 10-10. I go.
Yep.
Just making sure that
Usually
everything's
swap off
correct
the
with the
10-10
board
for
state.
you.
It didn't
That's not
affect
good for me.
anything, but it's always good to
I was
be
just pointing it out.
thorough.
Okay.
We got a game rule violation here. For
Okay.
a warning.
Okay.
Have we got a warning for such thing before? Have we got a warning for the weekend so far?
No.
So
Okay.
He's going to pick up a warning. Draws his card for the turn. So he still has breaking and entering. That's correct.
he does.
And he can cast entering, but not.
Not sure I've ever seen someone slough off
Breaking.
a 10-10 like that.
Now he starts looking at graveyards.
I mean, he might as well, because if he casts entering here, it says, put a creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. It gains haste until end of turn. Now, that's the end of the text. It kind of feels like I would say you have to sack it or something, but you
Yeah.
don't. He just gets a dude. And he can cast it. He's got black mana thanks to his Clue Stone there.
He's going to cast the Cross the Monitor instead. Evolve the Krakenora.
Okay. So this represents lethal damage. It basically prevents Bob from attacking because Kerry can just block with his Krakenura, and then it's 9 damage coming back thanks to the Key Rune and the Karasta Monitor if Bob doesn't do anything else.
But what we know is that Bob has a new Prov Guildmage.
Ah, and mana to cast and activate it this turn, too.
He also has the Hunter of Nightvale. Nightvale Hunter.
Haunter of Nightvale? Okay. Does he have black mana?
Did I see that's a Simic? No, he does not have black mana.
So that's going to sit in his hand for now. But he's got the new Prov Guildmage, which with certainly, I mean, he can cast it and detain something. If he had the ability, he could get in for 10 right now. Unfortunately, Kerry's at 12. It wouldn't be enough. Now, of note here, new Prov Guildmage.
The blocks.
Which we have up on the screen right now for you to look at.
Yes, it can detain non-land permanents. That includes key rooms. So it can block and detain this turn. And essentially blank.
Right, well, he can just detain the key rune right now. He can't even animate it.
Yeah, if he's going to, he should do it now.
Because doing it at the end of your turn doesn't gain you anything because detain only works until the beginning of your next turn.
That's right. But he can also wait and see if there's anything else that changes in the board state. I mean, something like a madcap skills or something could happen, and it might change the way that he wants to play it. So he's going to wait. Makes sense.
Or again, we've seen the breaking and entering.
Yep. Yeah.
So
exactly.
Suddenly you add an additional monster to the board.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's likely that the key rune's going to be the biggest thing, but it's not impossible.
We could get some real haymakers here where, you're like breaking and entering a Diluvian Primordial back into play.
Yeah, this match could get kind of crazy. It looks like Kerry's picked up a bunch of fuse cards, and he doesn't seem to differentiate. He's just like, oh, it's a fuse card, we're taking it.
Yeah, they're all like fireballs.
It can be. I mean, breaking and entering is a tough one to make work, but it looks like he's in a position where he's going to get
it's also like,
amount of value.
you know, if the games go long, just the milling 8 cards is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I don't know if he has access to blue or not. I'm curious. All right.
I think that's entering my syndicate.
I don't even know what it does. Yep.
This is one thing I've always appreciated about the old school pros, though. They always read the card, just make sure.
Yeah.
They have no shame in you know, how I'm supposed to know these cards already. It's just like, look, I don't know what that does, man.
So that involves Krakenara.
Activate.
He activates.
Good attack.
To tame this guy.
Yep, he's going to tame that guy, and that leaves a block on Syndicate Enforcer, and that would leave Bob Maher at 2, which is
Block here.
more than 0.
Okay, go to 2. Got that one.
That's sufficient.
You got that one.
All right,
I was
Bob
scared
Maher
of 10%.
takes down the first game
Didn't
here.
want
That
you to
one
know
got a
that.
little tense down the stretch as, you know,
Look.
granting haste to a creature that's not even on the battlefield yet is kind of a big board swing, but Bob had the proper defenses lined up thanks to the new Prov Guild Mages and able to pull out the victory there.
Yeah, you got it. I have another warning in the event, not for that. Okay.
This one will work for the prize.
Okay.
Show the world you watch the Pro Tour coverage with the Eyes on the Prize achievement. Just log on to planeswalkerpoints.com and enter the redemption code MazeRunner to earn your reward. A few people asking me about that. Well, they'll be happy to know how to get their achievement.
Yeah.
So,
you see a very lonely feature match area.
yeah, those matches were very quick. You know, I wonder. You know, you were wondering, BDM, if people were going to kind of retaliate. The feeling down in the draft tables yesterday was, look, you want to be in a 2-color deck, maybe a splash, but ideally just a 2-color deck. And it looks like that didn't work out for a lot of people.
I talked to a lot of people who felt like they were like, it's different to be in a 2-color deck, in when you're going to fire off 5 8/4 Qs in an afternoon. Right, because, you know, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you lose in the first round of a draft.
Yeah.
And you're done, and you fire up another draft, and
Yeah.
you go.
That's my life, by the way.
You've got one shot. You're at the Pro Tour. You have one shot in the morning to do your draft.
Right.
You don't get to do another draft. So if the Golgari cards that you've been gambling on in the third pack are not there,
They're just not there.
you know, I mean, I've talked to players who are like, okay, I had a plan, and then I had a backup plan, and neither guild was open in the packs.
Yeah.
You know, like, so, you know, my backup plan was to not 0-3.
Right. Right.
So, and that was very much a product of the 2, like, adhering to the 2 slight dip into 3rd color strategy, like, you know, the Boros splashings or Tarswine, you know, that kind of thing. So, like, you know, people felt like they had more options. You know, talking to some people felt there were more options on the table, especially for a one-time draft. It's like, one time I got to do this. I got that. If they're taking guild gates and they're taking mana fixing and they're just leaving themselves open to all the best cards, especially if you think everyone else is adhering to the more aggressive guild strategy. If you think people are taking Riot Pikers and
Spent a lot of that game thinking that.
you know, halberdiers and such.
Yeah.
You know, you feel like the primordials and you know, the big fuse spells and all these powerful cards are going to be out there for you.
Yeah, you know, and we saw that with Bob. I mean, the gatekeeper strategy, basically, taking a bunch of gates and a bunch of gatekeepers is a good way to get ahead of those aggressive decks. Those gatekeepers are stabilizing forces in and of themselves, just being a 2/4 body. And on top of it, they usually get you a significant amount ahead on the board as well. Or in your hand, you can draw a card or get a bunch of life. Sometimes it kills another creature, adds another blocker. All of these things are detrimental to the aggressive deck's plan. And you get to play just much more powerful cards. You know, Diluvian Primordial is a very powerful Magic card, right? And, you know, if you're in a highly aggressive deck, that isn't the kind of card that you want.
Well, and you saw like Bob, who did a lot of preparation for this event, you know, breaking and entering, he's like, I don't know what that card does.
Right.
Because, you know, that's a big, expensive card, which is very challenging on your mana.
Yes.
And you don't play it a lot of the time.
No.
So just looking at people who are in the event twittering, Patrick Sullivan, who's at Basic Mountain on Twitter, you know, a little grumbly. He said he lost to Pack Rat in games 1 and 2 of his first round today. He also said his opponent was unable to make eye contact during the proceedings. I'm so sorry.
He's such a great Twitter follow, Patrick. That's fantastic.
Sorry, Pack Rat.
Yeah.
Kill you.
Gotcha. Yeah, I had a flashback. I was doing a draft at a local shop, and somebody played a turn 2 Pack Rat. I'm like, wait, what? That hasn't happened to me in a while. All right, players are examining their opening hands here.
Okay.
It looks like both players have kept. All right, so let's see
Go ahead.
what the gate situation is over on Bob Maher's side. That's going to dictate a lot of things. If he has 2 gates to start off with, it's going to turn on all of his gatekeepers. But he said he's got a 2-drop. It looks like a frilled Oculus here.
Yeah.
Solid 2-drop. No green to pump it currently, but still very reasonable card. And another one is followed up by Kerry. It's a Croconura.
Go.
Uh-oh. And no third land for Bob.
Yeah, we saw him draw a 7-drop off of his first draw. He's also got a clue stone in his hand, so if he does hit that 3rd land at some point soon, he's going to be able to dig himself back out of the mana debt here. But for now, this is where Kerry can really press his advantage. And it looks like he's going to with a Rubble Belt Maka. Unfortunately, still the Croconura cannot attack. And a land right off the top for Bob Maher. You got to figure like he's got to play the clue stone here and get his mana developed back. So he immediately gets back that land drop, so to speak.
Take a look at the cards that he's got to work with here.
Okay.
Bob's holding an Opal Lake Gatekeeper, a Leyline Phantom, a Diluvian Primordial, and Martial Law.
All right.
Yeah, which doesn't look particularly ambitious on his mana.
No, not at all. In fact, he's also got the
Croconura.
Simic Clue Stone, which can activate the
Here we see the
Croconura.
Wasteland
Oh.
Viper, Blood Rush
Yep.
on a Croconura, taking down the Frilled Oculus.
Yeah. So it looks like Bob is going to have to use
Axebane Guardian, I remember him.
Hey! Seems like he might even be better. Another land off the top for Bob, so things are coming back around. He can play a Leyline Phantom or a Martial Law this turn. He can play Opalite Gatekeepers, but he won't draw a card, so it's not particularly appealing.
Yeah, and he is going to play the Martial Law.
Yep.
Go ahead.
So that's not going to trigger until his upkeep. So he knows he's going to take a hit of 5 or 6 damage here, depending on what Kerry comes up with on his side. But after that, it's going to start locking things down, and he's going to start locking the game down.
And here's a perfectly fine target for the Martial Law.
Turn 5 Ruination Worm. It's a
11.
7/6 vanilla creature that we saw in game 1.
But Bob is down to 11.
Yeah. Pressure's on, though I have to say that Bob's probably in a decent spot here. He's going to be able to play Leyline Phantom this turn if he wants. And that's going to block either of the creatures that are thrown at it. He's happy to do so. He's also drawn a Cloudfin Raptor, though, and it's tempting to try to make sure that that thing gets a few evolves going as well. Let's see if he takes a line that
looks like that
maximizes
might be what he's doing, and then he's going to play
the Opalite Gatekeepers. So he gets to play 2 cards in 1 turn, and he also gets a 1/2 flyer in the air. He gets to play 2 creatures. That way, you know, in case something unexpected happens, he'll have a backup blocker, and then the next turn he can drop the Leyline. Now, he doesn't get that card draw off the Opalite Gatekeepers, but the amount of pressure that Kerry's been able to mount here means that Bob doesn't have the luxury of just kind of waiting around hoping to get extra value. He just needs to get cards from his hand onto the table.
We see that Bob also drew, Kerry also drew a Miming Slime.
Oh, did he? Wow. So that's going to be a 7/7 Miming Slime?
Yes, it is.
Wow.
Just a little better than a Ruination Worm at 3 mana.
All right. So attack with both creatures. And it looks like Bob's chump blocking here with his...
Bob's in stabilizing mode.
He is. He's like, look, I need to get to this Diluvian Primordial. That's going to really stabilize the board for him. But he's willing to just throw cards away at this point to make sure that his life total stays high.
20 minutes.
mean,
20 minutes reminds Bob.
Yeah, I mean, he's really trying to conserve his life total. He could have double blocked the Maka there
Lightning Slime.
and just traded his guy. I mean, he takes on a significant level of risk doing so, but he just instantly blocked.
So he makes a 7/7 and evolves his Croconora there.
Yeah, so he decided to do that post-combat, which is an interesting decision, as the Croconora could have been even bigger, though. It did get chumped anyway, so I guess it didn't matter.
Oh. Do I have time to do that anymore?
Very true. Sorry.
Well, you'd have to attack with the clue stone, we should ask the judge.
All right, that's fine.
Judge?
All right, so they're going to
I
call
ran
a judge
through my card,
because
I remember I had
Bob
martial law.
forgot
I didn't
his
actually-
martial law
I didn't
trigger.
actually say it during my upkeep.
Unfortunately, this is a trigger ability. At this moment, if you miss your trigger, you
Oh,
actually
okay.
miss your trigger.
No problem.
Okay, so Bob did miss his martial law trigger. This could come back to bite him.
Children are weeping all over North America right now.
Now there's so Bob does have the 7 mana he needs here, right? And he can actually copy Miming Slime and make another 5/5.
Okay.
He could.
Oh, he's only got 6. Sorry, he's only got
Okay.
6 mana. He needs another turn here. So he's going to play his Leyline Phantom and pass. And in come the clowns. Everybody's bashing, and there's going to be some chump blocks here.
You're at 11, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's.
Doesn't much matter. Black.
Okay, so you take 6.
All right, so he's going to take 6 damage
take
after
7.
7. Excuse me.
double
She's
chump
4.
blocking.
Yep.
It's actually 7 damage,
I'll
4
Toil
from
and
the
Trouble.
Croconora.
Yeah.
And then he's
Okay.
going to play
Toil and Trouble.
Toil and Trouble and kill you with it. So Bob Maher stumbled very briefly on mana there and was fully punished by a pretty reasonable curve out from Kerry.
Yeah, yeah. Curious if not missing that trigger, how
Yeah, I mean, I don't
how
know.
that changes that.
I'm not sure
Does
exactly
he get
what
to save?
Kerry's attacks look like at that point. He might have been able to double block
He chumps.
something.
He-
Can't wait to try out new Return to Ravnica block constructed and booster draft strategies straight from the Pro Tour. Log on to Magic Online and take part in special block constructed spotlight events, block constructed 2-man gold queues, and Dragon's Maze limited tournaments all weekend. For more information, visit mtgonline.com. It's probably what I would be doing if I wasn't in this booth. I'd be watching the stream and drafting right now. Maybe breakfast.
Right.
And I'm
Let's
gonna
be honest.
Sounds good.
I've known you for a while now, Marshall.
Yeah.
You'd be sleeping right now.
What time is it? Oh, I'd be sleeping. Yeah, I'd be dreaming about playing Magic Online. All right, so we're gonna get a
I mean,
game 3.
you would have fallen asleep with your laptop near your head, probably.
Draft till you drop. So we're going to get a game 3 here, BDM, and Bob's got to be frustrated about missing that trigger. I'm not sure exactly how it would have changed the outcome of the game, but
I mean,
in your experience with Bob, you have a lot of experience with Bob. I don't have barely any. I've met him a few times and had a few chats.
he's pretty angry with himself.
Is he gonna be kicking himself?
He's gonna be angry with himself. He's not gonna kick himself. I mean, he's just gonna be like, remember these. You know, he's gonna try to make sure he remembers these things.
Okay. Is he the type of guy that would let it
No.
affect his game?
No.
Okay.
No.
I didn't think so.
No.
He doesn't give that vibe, and somebody with the level of success that he's achieved generally doesn't have that problem.
But he's gonna think about it. I'm gonna tell you, he's gonna think about it later if he doesn't win this match.
All right, so looks like Bob's got a keeper, and I think Kerry's making a decision here.
Okay.
All right, both players keep. We're going to get a fair game here.
It's your definition of a fair game, 7 cards
Yeah,
each.
that's all I need. Look, they kept it, right? All right, lands for the first few turns for our players.
There's a tower drake.
There's a Tower Drake, so a little bit of pressure here from Bob's side of the table. It's going to take a while for Kerry to set up his mana. We've seen that he's got a lot of, well, there's one right now, a key rune. He's got a lot of clue stones as well. So if Bob can have a nice curve out here, he can punish him for running all those mana artifacts and
And Bob, you see no romantic attachment to drawing a card there. He's like, I just got to keep my curve going.
Yeah, he's way off on that. No gates at all at this moment. So Opal Gatekeeper is just going to be a 2/4. But again, the curve out is on here. And there's a Zerta Druid, so more mana on Kerry's side, but not really bolstering his position as far as actual cards go, as both of Bob Maher's creatures can attack with impunity. Even the key rune can't block Opal Gatekeepers effectively. All right, so there's a mountain now. Remember, Kerry did see Lightning Helix before as well, so he's got to be aware of that. No blocks, take 4. Now, is there a follow-up for Bob Maher? Does he have a Leyline Phantom or something?
Let's take a look at what he's got.
There it is, a Leyline Phantom. So he just went 2-3. He just went 3-4-5 on his curve here, and he's got 9 power on the board, facing down a bunch of mana.
And then what does Kerry Edward have to work with?
Yeah, now that's what I'm wondering about right now.
He's got 3 lands. Just played one of them. He also has Flesh Blood, Ruination Worm, and Syndicate Enforcer. And there is that worm. The worm has really been like almost like the defining card.
Yeah, because he's had it on turn 5 all 3 games. All right, there's a Wind Drake off the top for Bob Maher. Does he have a removal spell? No. So it looks like that worm is going to halt the proceedings down at ground level. But flyers are still going to get in, and I believe the new Prov Guildmage. Oh. There's a Windrake, and there's the Guildmage. All right, so a really nice board state here for Bob Maher. He has curved out. He's used all but one of his mana every turn. Kerry remembering to use his Zerta Druid and step. Kerry has 7 mana available to him right now. He's got another land, it looks like.
And a Lava Crew.
A Lava Crew, sure. His hand is pretty unimpressive here, though. Syndicate Enforcer is not going to do much against the Flyers. And remember, that new Prov Guildmage, like, if Kerry decides to attack with the Worm, Bob's at 19, he can be like, sure, no problem. And then he can start neutralizing blockers.
No blocker.
I mean, that key rune looks like a creature, but it's not.
Yep.
He's just got the one Zerta Druid right now. He's got to keep mana up to make that key rune a blocker if he wants, and it still can't block the Opal Gatekeepers either. So no black mana for Syndicate Enforcer, no black mana for Flesh.
And here comes the Lava Crew. Now, Bob can also start flying his guys over with the new Prov Guildmage. I mean, he can choose to be very aggressive.
Absolutely.
Here.
Right now, he has the mana to give 2 of his creatures flying, including the Leyline Phantom. That could just be lethal. Still only 2 creatures can get flying, but it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
He can also play a Primordial, but he gets no value out of it.
Yep.
For this guy. Okay. I have no blocks.
All right, so Bob says, look, I've got a 2-turn clock here, so I'm going to hit you for 6.
Yep.
That's exactly what he does.
And now...
And he could just leave up his new Prov Guildmate activation now.
And return. Opinion. Put you at 11.
Yep.
So Bob looks like he's in the driver's seat here. Now, it is a little different with detain, as he doesn't get to do the detain your guy on end step and then detain another guy so that there's 2 detained. They will become undetained.
But he doesn't care about that.
Right.
And your text up.
All right, here we go.
The worm.
Okay.
So Worm is detained.
Shoot you for 1.
Mm-hmm.
You go to 10.
Yes.
All right, I guess we're assuming.
I'll have this steal you 7.
All right, so we're assuming here
Untap.
that so he's not attacking. So he's at 3. If he can cast another multicolored spell, then he can Lobber Crew and Zerta's Druid his opponent out.
Steal you 1. Think it twice.
It doesn't.
Wow.
Wow. Kerry Edwards finds a win there, just barely eking it out. You know, I mentioned earlier, I said he was prudently remembering to use his Zertod Druid. Well, if he hadn't, I don't think he would have won this match. Unbelievable. He finds 7 damage in 1 turn off of blood, or 1 spell off of blood.
Right.
And then uses his Lobber Crew and his Zertod Druid to finish off Bob Maher. Facing down lethal as well.
Hall of Famer Bob Maher defeated by Kerry Edwards, playing in, I believe this is his first Pro Tour.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, you got to wonder, you know, Bob did have blockers for the 7 power guy.
Yep.
You know, do you just detain the Lobber? Look, I'm asking.
Let's hear from Kerry Edwards here about how that felt.
Hey everybody, Sheldon Menery down here in the feature match area with Kerry Edwards. So, first Pro Tour, and you got to play against a Hall of Famer. What's that like?
It was very intimidating. Also, in my draft pod, it was very stacked. Also, you know, Nassif, Johnny Hot Sauce from Moto, who else? Craig Wesco. So, there's a lot of good people in there, but.
So you had you looked like you were dead the next turn there, and then you peeled the second fuse spell. Did you figure that out immediately? I mean, did you know that was your play to win the game?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I had to go to attacks to hope that he detained because I knew he'd follow the Gavel. But yeah, I had to get pretty lucky there. His deck's pretty good. So. There's also just want to mention, this is also like my first big event besides a PTQ, so I'm pretty excited.
That's a way to go in. Brian David Marshall wants to know about the dinosaur vomiting rainbows on your shirt.
It's one of my favorite shirts. I got it online at threadless.com, and just figured I'd wear my favorite shirt for day 2. So.
All right, well, so far it's a lucky shirt. Let's keep the luck going. That's Kerry Edwards. I'm Sheldon Menery. Back to the booth.
Welcome back to the booth. Marshall Cycle with Brian David Marshall asking the hard-hitting questions.
Well, what I really wanted to know was, like, you know, do you remember when Zvi wanted to wear the white shirt to the Pro Tour to signal?
So knew what he was drafting.
So everyone knew he's drafting white. He's signaling that he wanted to be the 5-color player.
So he was going to vomit 5 cards.
I'm going to spew the rainbow out.
I guess not. But yeah, you know, I got to say, finding that win, super, super close. I'm curious to talk to Bob Maher, see what he thinks about that. I mean, the missing of the trigger in game 2, that's obvious, but the rest down the stretch was a really tight decision-based thing, and I'm curious to see what he says. So.
Yeah.
All right, looks like they're ready at the news desk, so we're going to throw it to them. They're going to chat for a while. When we come back, we'll have the second round of this draft. We'll see you guys in a few minutes.
All right, welcome back to the news desk. 1 round in the books. Well, still about 10 minutes left on the round, so some people still playing. Very interesting this morning, Zach. Just anecdotally from our 4 feature matches, 3 of them, about 12, 13 minutes, all 3 of them done, and you were just left with Bob Maher and Kerry Edwards there. And yet, that suggests a fast format, but we're beginning to feel that it genuinely is a little bit slower.
Yeah, and that's sort of what we saw in that match. 2, you know, very good players. Day 1, we're seeing, you know, matches ending extremely quickly. I think, though, as players sort of just talk to one another and sort of ascertain each other's strategies and figure out there's a little bit more nuances to the format, and that you don't just get your lightning fast aggro deck all the time, I would expect to see these matches slowing down a little bit.
All right, so let's take you to our master scoreboard. Some results are still coming in, so by no means completely up to date. But first of all, you see that Rob Castellan there at 9-0. I had a chance to chat with Mark Eilers, who he defeated in the first round this morning. Eilers on Pro Tour debut. I said, okay, so that 1, I know where the 1 for Jurkovic and Maher come from, that's against each other. Where was your 1 draw? And he said, oh yeah, that was round 1 in draft. You're joking, right? It's like, nobody draws in draft. He's like, oh yeah, I drew in draft in round 1. Like, how did you manage that? And he said, well, I had Assemble the Legion. Like, that doesn't sound like a card you draw with, that sounds like a card you win with. He's like, no, I had it in play for a lot of turns, and I couldn't kill my opponent. I was like trying to construct some weird scenario where his opponent was on 58 life or something, and will he die on the backswing to some horde that... No, he said, no, he didn't have much of a board at all. Guardian of the Gateless. 5 mana, 3/3, can block any number of creatures, +1/+1 for every creature it blocks. And they just sat and stared at each other. One player with Assemble the Legion out here, one player with a Guardian of the Gateless out here. And that turned out to be a fair match. And that was his draw. So he now has one defeat. Castellan won that one. Craig Wesco, you just heard Kerry Edwards talking about at that table. He defeated Robert Jurkovic. So big move for Wesco, first win of the day, 8-1. Jurkovic now 6-2-1. And that won the draw. As the rounds go by, the back end of the day, you start to think you might be ahead of the people behind you. But through most of the day, you feel like you're behind the ones in front of you, the honest-to-God 7-2s and so on. So Jurkovic loses out to Wesco. Andrew Schrout is a winner over Oliver Polak-Rotman. So Polak-Rotman 7-2, Andrew Schrout to 8-1. And Makahita Mahara is at 8-1. That's very dangerous news. A tremendous player, former 2006 world champion. He beat Igor Kodasevich, the St. Petersburg PTQ winner and member of the World Magic Cup team for the Russian Federation. So those are results coming in. Oh wow, here's a big one just coming in on the ticket. I can tell you, Simon Berthier was paired against Yuri Peleg. The two playing the exact same deck with the 9-1 record between them. They were paired in the first round of draft, and you can just see going in now, Yuri Peleg falls to 7-2. It is Berthier from Greece who moves to 8-1. They are looking for their Aetherlings to take them the distance. Fader and Swift are still playing in their match. Fader and Swift both at 7-1, you see at the bottom on the left of your screen. All right, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a little bit of fancy footwork now. We're both going to head over to the video wall because we've got a feature for you based around yesterday's draft viewer. Now, of course, we saw Luis Scott Vargas draft his deck and play his rounds, certainly the first one. And we also saw Dennis Rashid come in and record a draft tech for us, and he turned out to go 3-0. But of course, there are an awful lot of cards you don't see just from those little trying to join the dots from, well, what did he do then? Or how come he went 0-3? So what we've done, Zach's put together a piece for us where we will go inside the draft and get a feel for just where are the gatekeepers going? Where are the gates going? What's really going on around the table? So we'll head over to the wall and take you inside the maze. So welcome to Inside the Maze. Rich Hagan, Zach Hill here with you, and on the big wall we're going to explore, go deep inside yesterday's draft viewer. Just what was going on. So Zach, how have you decided to tackle what is a ton of data?
Right, so what we're going to do today, Rich, is look at actually half of the draft pods. I tried to get the side of the table with a lot of really highly recognized name players, and also a pretty interesting scenario. So we're going to be looking at Martin Yuza, Dennis Rashid, Thomas Rickerby, and Luis Scott Vargas.
Okay, so on the other side of the table you have Sean Geese, Oliver Polak-Rotman, then R4, and then finally you have Pablo Criado and Gabriel Nassif. So User in 3, Rashid in 4, Rickerby 5, and LSV, who we watched draft in full, in 6.
Right, so an interesting thing that's going on in this particular draft is that we're going to see all 4 of these players started out with base red picks, and specifically base red-green picks. Wow. Now, a lot of draft formats, especially in, say, for example, Gate Crash, that would prove problematic for a lot of these players. But what we're going to look at is see how the archetypes were able to change and the players were able to adapt based on what was being passed to them and based on the composition of the pack.
Okay, so we're going to start with Martin User. Now, his first 3 picks were Pywild Shaman, so he takes the rare straight away. Right. Then we go Viashino First Blade, 1 red and white for the 2/2 that arrives as a 4/4 haste for 3. Wow, what a beating. And then Zurtar Druid. So that's the mana accelerant that also pings, deals 1 damage to the opponent. So that's the setup for User. Let's go to the big board. And Zach, tell us what we're looking at here for User's pick 4.
Right, so User right now, a deck with a really low curve. I mean, he's got Firewall Shaman, Vishnu First Blade, Zurtar Druid, very aggressive cards, probably trying to set up a quick or a mid-range Naya deck. Now, User's got a lot of options here. You've got Alive and Well. This card sets you up great in Celestia going into Return to Ravnica. It's a card that allows you to populate, also win a lot of tempo races. You've got Armored Wolf Rider, the Celestia guild card. You only get one guild common out of Dragon's Maze. A 4/6 for 5, no abilities, but a really good rate on that card. You've got Give. Take may or may not cast right now, but if you cast Give on a 2-drop, you're attacking for 5 on turn 3. So, I mean, even in the first 3 cards, Rich, we see a lot of options.
All right. Then you've got Hired Torturer, Is It Cluestone, a Guild Gate, but not a Guild Gate that's particularly currently suited to any of his picks. Bottom row, Cruel Warrior. Now, do you think of that as just a straight 2/2 for 2 with an incidental upside, or are you planning on that being a 5/5 in a late game?
Well, it's one of those things that, like, you can't sit and say, like, oh, I really want to pay 6 mana every turn to give my creature +3/+3.
Sure.
But what happens sometimes, you just get to a board state where, the opportunity cost on that ability very low. Either you've stalled out or he's your last threat, in which case, having
Why
a 5/5, it can push you through and win you an entire match. I think Crawl Warrior actually an extremely solid card, and it doesn't commit you to gold colors, so you know that you're probably going to be able to actually cast it on the second turn of the game.
Okay, so there's green mana in Drown in Filth, but it takes you towards black.
Right.
He's already got one Zhur-Taa Druid. Is there a number of Zhur-Taa Druids that are too much? Because they are, after all, 1/1s for 2 mana. So is there a number where you just go, yeah, I don't want more of those in my deck?
It's interesting. He is a 1/1 for 2, and he is a ramp card, so you don't want your mana density to be too high. Mana density just being the number of cards in your deck that just add mana to your mana pool and don't do anything else. But his ability to deal 1 damage a turn is extremely potent, and the more of those you have, the less your opponent can do about it. I mean, they just have to produce a removal spell. The other thing with Zhur-Taa Druid is, if you get several of these, you can actually build your deck, assuming that you're more likely to have a ramp card.
Right, so you can start looking at all those 6 and 7s and crazy costs and think they're going to come a turn earlier.
Right.
All right.
So anyway, what I'm thinking if I'm looking at this pack and I'm Martin Yuza is, you've got some quality options in Alive and Well, but right now you're curved very low. So I would be looking at either Crawl Warrior or Zhur-Taa Druid.
All right, let's see what Martin User takes. And it's the Zhur-Taa Druid. So he's now got 2 of those. So Powered Shaman, Viashino First Blade, and now double Zhur-Taa Druid. So let's see what's coming to him then for pack 5. Here it comes. Bane Alley Blackguard, not interested in that. There's some green in Beetle Form Mage if he wants to head towards blue. Cluestone. Guildgate is there. So remember, Guildgate he saw in 4. It was an Orzhov Guildgate. There's a Guildgate here at 5. So no one feeding him from his right is hoovering up the Guildgates early. That's worth noting. Hazda Snare Squad. I knew I wasn't going to say that right the first time. That's a card that's kind of, it's good in an aggressive strategy. It looks like it's defensive as a 1/4 for 3, but there are a lot of cards like that in Dragon's Maze, and that's your fault, Zach Hill, it turns out. Maze Behemoth, huge. What about the bottom row? Anything there of interest?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, you see Give right here. You're not probably going to be able to cast both sides of it, but +3/+3 for 3 in an aggressive strategy, really good. The downside is, with 2 Zhur-Taa Druids as your 2-drops, those are not cards you necessarily want to be attacking with. I mean, you will. You'll be glad to attack for 4, but with a 2/2, you can attack for more and get through more blockers. So not necessarily as good as it would ordinarily be. Really late Tide Drinker. I think you've got to be looking at both Tide Drinker and Beetle Form Mage, kind of telling you what's open. And then, of course, you've got Thrashing Moss Dog. A 3/3 reach for 4. A very good card in most formats, and Scavenge with your double Zhur-Taa Druid, you're going to be able to regularly scavenge this card a lot.
Okay, let's find out what Martin User takes, and he in fact goes for the Thrashing Moss Dog. So I can tell you the round is almost done. Players are heading towards the next round. So we're going to pile on to our next player, and it's going to be Dennis Rashid. He opens Flesh and Blood. He then goes Corrosed Gorgon, and then Armed and Dangerous. So let's take a look at his 4th pick, and what is he going to aim for here? You can see he's going to take Cruel Warrior. Why does he take that, Zach?
Well, I think, you see Drown in Filth. It's a reasonable removal card, but again, it's not exactly where you want to be, and you need some early drops. Flesh, Blood, late game. Armed, Dangerous, late game. Corrosed Gorgon, late game. If you look at this pack, the easiest early drop that you can take is the Crawl Warrior, and if the game goes late, the card's really good anyway.
All right, his 5th pick. Let's see where he gets the options. There is another Cruel Warrior there. Is there anything else? Well, we've got this run again we see here. He ends up, let's take a look. I think
Crawl Warrior.
Cruel Warrior again.
The pack seems to be again between Drown and Filth, Crawl Warrior. You've got some Celestia options if you want to dip into white, but he basically just makes the same decision that he made the turn before.
Okay, now as we know, Dennis Rashid went on to be 3-0. He's the man who was the big winner in the pod. Next round, we go to England. God Save the Queen. It's Thomas Rickaby on debut. Now, this is interesting because he opened a Pyrewild Shaman just like Martin User did and took it just like Martin User did. And Zach, he went mono-coloured all the way.
Yes.
He wasn't interested in twos and gold and so on. He was just, let's be straight, single colour. Pyrewild Shaman, Rakdos Drake, Fatal Fumes. And then that sets up this pick 4. So we got Clear a Path for red. There's a nice Thrashing Moss Dog there. Zurtar Druid if he wants to go out. But he takes another Rakdos Drake. Do you like that pick?
I see where the pick is coming from. On one end, you see Gruul Guildgate, you see Zurtar Druid. You kind of have to think that red-green is open, which us looking at the entire pack is actually the exact opposite of open right here. So, I mean, it's kind of misleading to see both of these. I think what he's thinking is just like, look, I want to be consistent. I've got red-black cards. There's a good card in the pack for me I've already taken. Goes with a solid option of the Rakdos Drake, which is exactly what an aggressive red-black deck wants.
Okay, so let's take a look at Rickaby pick 5. Now again, look at all these gates. They're just all there. Anyone who wanted the gates at this table could have had them really at a very low price. So what are we looking at here, Zach?
I mean, I think the thing to pay attention to in this pack is just how underpowered it is. You're not really going to want to dip into Drown and Filth without a lot else to do with it. Test Pilot you're not excited about. Cluestone you're not excited about. Nivik Cyclops, actually a card that you can probably get behind.
That's a good card.
The downside is almost all of your cards that you've taken so far cost 3 right now.
Right.
So you're kind of not really looking to add a 3-drop, especially a Defender, which you need to set up. A lot of the rest of these cards don't do
maybe
for you.
Steeple Rock, but I mean, he hasn't picked a white card yet.
And the interesting thing about Steeple Rock is you're probably going to want to take this gate if you're going to play a 3-color deck that features Steeple Rock with one of the colors being white.
Okay.
Because Gate is just a more powerful card. And finally, Showstopper, Riot Piker. Riot Piker, a great aggressive card, but just not the same quality. I would probably either take Piker and say, look, I'm all in.
Yep.
Or actually just take this Gate right here and open myself up to some of the white cards in pack 2.
You see, Riot Piker is a very interesting card. You say all in. The thing is, there are few more miserable experiences in current block draft than having a Riot Piker that is just running in to die.
Exactly.
You know, we like choices, and as Goblin Pikers go and variants on that, this one, you know, you put Macap skills on it, you're feeling really quite funky about life. But as it is, big risk. Let's see whether he went Riot Piker or whether he went Orzhov Guildgate. He goes for the gate. And actually, it turns out from our 4, seats 3 through 6, User, Rashid, Rickaby, and Luis Scott Vargas, they could have taken any number of gates. That is the only gate that gets picked in this segment of the draft. And it's really in the sweet spot for where we think gates may well be drafted. So interesting to see that they were so open at this table. So we move on, we get to Luis Scott Vargas. Now, of course, you saw all of his picks as they happened live at the draft. But he kicked off Savageborn Hydra, Crisis Incubation, and Scab Clan Giant. So big, and removal in between. Oh, and super big. Yeah, we need Marshall to reach a little bit higher. So let's take a look then, Zach. His pick 4, what's he thinking?
Right, and I think, again, what's interesting about this pick is the context of the rest of the draft. So you're in a big base red-green deck. You've got Crassus Incubation. You're either setting yourself up for a solid 3 colors or splashing a really powerful removal spell. You're not really looking at massive. You're probably not looking to pick a Cluestone this early, or at least one that's not in your colors. Gleam of Battle, really good, but it actually kind of wants to capitalize on a lot of smaller creatures, not a few mid-range ones. You've got a Guildgate here if you want to dip into black, something you're paying attention to. This Gruul Cluestone, on the other hand, not your Dimir Cluestone, on color, helps you cast Hydra, helps you cast Giant, helps your mana work for Crassus Incubation. So, you know, not really excited to take a Cluestone 4th, but reasonably good here.
And is that what he's going to take? It is, I think.
I think it is,
He
yeah,
takes Clue
and
Stone.
then-
I'm really interested in Ubulsar Gatekeepers because people play the white one because they want a guy, they play the green because they want the life and so on. And it seems like this goes super, super late. It's like, is -2/-2, Zach, not as good as it looks like it is?
I think it's probably pretty good.
Right.
I think one of the issues is that your black deck, you know, the Rakdos or I guess Borzhov, as people have called it to me.
Boros, Orzhov, and Rakdos.
Boros, Orzhov, Rakdos. Usually a lot more of aggressive deck, and so not playing as many gates, not playing, you know, I mean, obviously you want a removal spell, but a 2/4 not always what you're looking for. I still think this card really very powerful. I just think that, you know, it might go later because it doesn't slot in as nicely to the existing archetypes.
Okay, so he's taken the Clue Stone. Let's look at pick number 5 for Louis Scott Vargas. Clear a path, destroy a defender. You've got Debt to the Death. That's a card Marshall Sutcliffe was talking about when talking about the valuation of cards. Check out his piece on YouTube from yesterday. Got another Guildgate there. Renegade Crassus, the rare still in that pack. A Zurtar Druid, we see. Thrashing Mostok, that's a card I value very highly. I like that card a lot. But where would you think he goes here?
You know, I mean, your Guildgate, something you're looking at tremendously, given that you just took a mana fixer. Generally, Guildgate's more powerful than Clue Stones. I think Renegade Crassus in the pack very late, extremely powerful card. Double green, a little bit scary though. Thrashing Mostok, high quality, exactly what your deck wants to be doing. But Zhur-Taa Druid, just clearly the most powerful card in the pack, I think. Arguably the best common in the set. You need ramp, you're in Gruul, you need early drops. I think Zhur-Taa Druid, pretty clearly the pick here.
And is it? Let's see. Here we
Vanilla
go.
White.
It was indeed
Very nice.
Zhur-Taa Druid. Now, of course, if you want to go even deeper into the draft, you can see every pick for all 8 players. And we'll be doing exactly the same this morning. Next round, we'll have one of the players from the draft that you saw this morning let us know how their opening picks went and see where they can navigate the draft. It's an amazing tool. Hope you take good use of it. So we're inside the maze. Rich Hagan and Zach Hill, we're heading back to the news desk.